Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Future Ready Leadership. My guest today is Diana Chapman. She's the best-selling co-author of The 15 Commitments of Conscious Leadership. She's a coach who's worked with over 1,000 CEOs, founders, and executives, including the co-founder of Instagram, president of 24 Hour Fitness, co-founder of Asana, and a lot of others. She's also an instructor at Stanford University. Diana, thank you for joining me.
Super happy to be here with you.
So I've had a few executive coaches over the years, people like Marshall Goldsmith, who, a lot of people have heard of. And it seems like in today's business world, more and more executives and leaders and just people in general are getting comfortable working with a coach. Obviously, you work with a lot of very seasoned business professionals and executives. Why would you say people hire you? Like, is there a list of the top 3 to 5 reasons why you might get brought in?
Yeah, I am specifically helping leaders work on their consciousness. And what that means is I'm helping them pay attention moment to moment to whether they're leading from threat or whether they're leading from trust. So that's my specialty. So I have a nose for being able to sense when somebody's in some threat and can point it out without judgment, just, hey, threat's here. And there are consequences if you want to lead from threat. That you experience some benefits as well, but there are consequences that create what I call drama drag. And in today's business world, drama drag costs you in meaningful ways. So it's my job to help you understand where you're creating that drag and how to get yourself out of it so you can lead from trust and create a lot more momentum. So that's my specific specialty. It's a bit of a niche. It's a little different than a lot of coaches.
Very cool. Maybe we can unpack that a little bit because I think that's, especially in today's business world, that seems to be a big challenge for a lot of people, the threat versus trust. So when you get brought in, let's say I'm the CEO of a big company, and I say, hey, Diana, we want to work together, we'll bring you in. What are some of the signs that you look for or that you would look for on me or my team or my leaders to tell if I'm somebody who's leading from a place of threat versus trust?
Well, first thing I'm going to take a look at is, are you actually really taking radical responsibility for your results? So if you're the leader of the company and your company did not make its earnings last quarter, are you owning how you created the company not making its earnings?
So how I would talk about it. So maybe I would say, well, we had a bad quarter because XYZ versus, well, we had a bad quarter because,
My team.
yeah, this
It's
product
about
didn't
my
get,
team. It's about
yeah,
my
my
team. It's
team.
not
Okay.
about me. And I'm going to
Yeah.
go, it's about you. And it's
Got
about
it.
your
Okay.
team too, but it's about you. And if you're unwilling to take a look at that, I'm not your girl.
Okay. Interesting. Okay. So during what if people will say it's external factors outside of our control? It's the economy, it's geopolitical, something that we couldn't do anything about.
Yes, there are things that are not in your control. That's fine. But what is in your control? And are you owning what is in your control?
Hmm. Okay. So even if there is some external force, you're still looking for some accountability and responsibility on behalf of the leader. I could have better prepared for this. I could have done X, Y, Z, even though this was an external force. There's still something that I could have done, and I can improve kind of language.
Well, and maybe there are things that I can't do, and maybe external forces are closing my business down. And can I surrender into that? Do that gracefully rather than trying to manage and control that in a way from threat that's going to create more drama.
Okay. All right. So that's obviously one important sign. So if people are not willing to take that accountability and responsibility, you're sort of just like, I'm not a good fit to come into this company.
Right. Another one would be, excuse
Or
me.
actually, before you even jump into that one, does anybody ever work with you on acknowledging and saying, hey, Diana, I'm not really good at that, but I want to get good at that. How can I do a better job of that?
Yeah, that's great. Then I'll say great. And then I'm going to say, teach me a class. I want to make sure my company doesn't make their third quarter's earnings just the way your company did. I want to follow in your footsteps. Tell me what to do. And
Hmm.
anybody can answer that question if they're curious. And they go,
Yeah.
well, I didn't have the one-on-one meetings with a bunch of my team members because I got distracted in something else, so I wasn't keeping track of some things. I didn't get buy-in on some certain things. I got some feedback and I didn't listen to it, so that I can see how I co-created this with everybody else. So
Mm.
when they can do that, that's great. The other thing that people have to pay attention to is your mind wanting to prove it's right about something, because if that's the case, I'm not going to be a good fit for you. And in an ever-changing world, we've got to have minds that think way outside of boxes in order to navigate. And so it requires you to get deeply, deeply curious. And that's edgy for a lot of people, to let go of being right about the way they see things.
Yeah, I struggle with that too. Even with
Mm-hmm.
my wife, sometimes she'll even say, she's like, you can be right or you can be loving. She's like, which
There
one
you
do you want
go.
to be? I'm like, damn it.
That's a smart woman.
Yeah, it's
We
it's
all
it's
love being
hard.
right, don't we? It's so fun to be right. And egos love it. It's like, ha, I told you. Bah. So we
Yeah.
let it be okay that we do enjoy being right. And it feels secure to our egos, but it's not really the biggest game in town.
Mm. So how do you, and I guess there's kind of the workplace setting and the personal setting. How do you move on from that? Like, if you were working with somebody like me and you're like, Jacob, shut up and stop, wanting to be right all the time. Um, if I were to say, yes, Dan, I agree, I should be more loving and less right, even though being right feels pretty fantastic, let's be honest. How do you get people to change that perspective? Because especially inside of an organization, I would assume it can be probably a little toxic if you're on a team and you have people that are trying to make decisions and one person's always like, yeah, I told you, like my idea was the best. I told you we should, or if somebody makes a mistake, I knew your idea was going to fail. I'm right. And on the one hand, you can see why it's the ego boost, but on the other hand, you could see why it will erode trust, kill morale, create a very disengaged team. How do you move away from that?
Great question. The first thing you have to do is you have to just let it be okay. The reason I want to be right is because I'm threatened. And I'm threatened because I'm
Mm.
scared. And if we don't recognize that and let it be okay that we're scared, we're not going to be able to shift the pattern. So any
Mm.
kind of like, come on, buck up, get over it, stop being right, won't actually be helpful. It'll actually secure the pattern. It's kind of
Mm.
like saying to a kid, stop being scared. It
Yeah.
doesn't work because the kid's scared. So can you just go, oh, hey, you're scared? Sure. All right. So if you knew me, you would know multiple times throughout the day, I'm having to sit with myself and go, oh, hey, hi. Hi, sweetheart. Looks like part of you's scared here. Let's just let that part be scared and welcome it, not make it a problem, but recognize that first it has to just feel itself, be scared, and then see if it wants to shift. And if it doesn't want to shift, we're not actually going to create anything new yet.
Yeah. So is it always from a place of fear? So when you look at people,
100%.
100%, huh?
100% of the time, anytime a human being is reactive, it's always because at the foundation we are scared.
So scared of what? Like, let's say in a work setting, because we've all worked with those types of people, right? Somebody's
Yeah.
always like, I'm right, you're not. But maybe they're a executive, maybe they're a mid-level leader, and they have a good position. They're doing great on their annual performance reviews. They have great scores by their team. You might look at somebody like that and say, well, what could they be scared of, right? They're doing so great.
Egos get scared because they perceive a threat to either our security, could be our financial security, our physical security, our psychological security, or there feels like a threat to their control. They want the world to look a certain way. They want their company to succeed a certain way. They want growth
Mm.
to happen a certain way. So it could be a threat to their control or it's a threat to their approval. I might look good right now, but I'm afraid I might not in the future. So I get scared if that approval is going to be threatened. So those three things, security, control, and approval, are at the foundation of every reactive pattern humans have.
I think I would put myself into the control
Me
uh,
too.
because we have two little kids. I have a 8-year-old daughter and a 5-year-old son, and I'm like one of the things that drives me nuts in my house is like mess, right? So if my wife will make breakfast or lunch or dinner, the kitchen will look a little bit more chaotic than if I do it. And so I always go nuts and I'm like, I got to leave the kitchen. I can't be in here. And so I frequently tell my wife, I'm like, why don't you just let me make breakfast? Like, I'll do it, right? I'll do all these things. Just, don't come into the kitchen. Leave me alone. Like, I'm happy to do it. And sometimes we bicker and go back and forth on that too. So I definitely struggle with the control aspect, especially when it comes to cleanliness. And I'm sure you can relate, right? A lot of people with kids, you have different parenting styles, you have different ways that you're trying to raise kids, to run your house. And I think my wife, she probably also has a little bit of the control, but it's more so me.
Right.
Uh, and I would imagine for a lot of executives and business leaders inside of an organization, control is always, a big part of that.
It's a big part of it, right? Yeah, you just have an idea of what the kitchen should look like.
Yep.
So
And when it
your practice,
doesn't, you're
your
upset.
practice is to go look at the kitchen like you were watching a black and white silent movie. And if you just saw a black and white silent movie of a kitchen with some dishes and some mess around, and you were just witnessing it from a distance, you'd just be like, oh yeah, there's a kitchen with stuff on it. And it wouldn't be threatening to you in that way. So the actual mess itself isn't a threat. The threat comes when your mind says the kitchen shouldn't look like that. And it wants to be right about that because it's a threat to your control of how you think a kitchen should look. And in that moment, reactivity kicks in.
Yeah.
The dishes actually didn't cause a reactive pattern. It's your story about the dishes that caused the reactive pattern.
Hmm. I can very much relate to that because I,
And
I, I
so,
literally do say, oh, it shouldn't look like this.
right.
Uh,
And
Kids
you
shouldn't
say
do
that as
that.
if it's a fact,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
In the moment you think your stories are fact, you're going to get reactive.
Huh. And I suppose then my wife would have her own story, and then our stories clash, and then it becomes, a challenge.
Nah, 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 nah. What we do.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Is the same thing true inside of organizations? Let's say I'm leading a team, somebody else is leading a team. I feel that we should be doing XYZ, somebody else doesn't. So we have this kind of battle of control. You see the exact same pattern emerge?
Same exact patterns. And that's why when I coach my clients, I coach them at both their issues at home and at work because it's the same stuff. And so,
Interesting.
yeah, so like I think you shouldn't have promised sales, you guys should not have promised the client that the product could do these things. Now I feel threatened. And sales says you guys should be working faster because if you don't provide these little parts in the product, then we're not going to get sales. And so they're nanny with each other. They both want to prove they're right.
Hmm. So the control aspect, so there was the control, the financial security, and what was the third one?
Approval. I need to
Approval.
be
Okay.
seen, valued, liked, respected. Those
Okay.
are all things that egos and human beings desire.
So the control one, is it something that you can spot? So let's say I'm on a team inside of an organization. Is there a way for me to spot which one of those three somebody else on my team has, or is it something you can only identify upon self-reflection for yourself?
Um, I think I encourage people just to let the other decide for themselves what they perceive as threat. You might have a guess and you might be right, but we don't know because we don't know what is that person over there looking at because it could be
Yeah.
like for somebody it might be like, oh my god, if we don't get sales up the company's going to die and this is going to be a threat to my security. Whereas they could also look at it as what are my colleagues out there, my classmates in business school, going to think of me if my company dies? And
Yeah.
somebody else might go like, I really have a vision this thing goes and I'm really mad. So you could have any one of those going on at the same time.
Hmm. And I love the way that you mentioned control. So any other techniques, and I thought we could dive into all three. So specifically for control, I love the idea of looking at things in kind of a black and white movie. I'm actually going to try that next time when we're having breakfast or dinner and try to, uh, you know, put myself in an observer perspective.
Yeah.
Any other techniques specifically for the one of control? And I guess for people who are listening and watching, they have to identify for themselves which one of these three things they are scared of.
Yeah.
Uh,
And by the way, it may be all three at the same time, which it often is.
okay, so it can be more than one.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So we touched on control. Anything else specifically on the control one that you want to talk about or include before we jump to one of the others?
Well, they're all the same, which is you have to first come back and just see, oh, there's just an ego at threat. I have to let myself relax into it's okay to be scared. I'm not trying to calm the fear. I'm not trying to suppress it. I'm just
Hmm.
letting it be okay. I'm just scared. And then am I willing to shift? And am I willing to shift back to trust? And there are very specific questions I ask myself to see if I'm willing to come back to trust. And a big one is would I be willing to let go of being right? So I'm not right that the kitchen should be a certain way. I can argue equally to a jury why the kitchen should be messy is at least as true. Why my wife should do it the way she does it is at least as true. So you're going to question the mind. If you can't question the mind, then you're going to stay in threat. Another one would be, would you just willing to feel your feelings about this? There's just feelings. Like part of you is just disappointed that the kitchen doesn't look the way you'd like it to look. Would you just let yourself be disappointed? Or maybe you're scared.
Mm.
So there's feelings underneath the righteousness that you're avoiding. Would you be willing to just make sure you have really clear agreements? A lot of us have drama because we don't have clear agreements about who will do what and by when, and we don't stand for creating win for all agreements. And so we just recycle the na over and over again. So there's lots
Yeah.
of questions that we can ask one another to see if we're willing to come back into a state of trust. And
I
that's
think
what
it's
the
also
15 commitments are about. The 15 commitments are the 15 ways to get back to trust.
okay. I think it's also really hard to admit the scared part,
Of
right? I
course
think people
it is.
like we try to substitute other words for that, like, I'm uncomfortable or I'm angry or I'm frustrated or I'm, whatever doesn't sound as vulnerable as scared is.
And
Um,
especially, it's true for all of us, but particularly men, because you were culturalized to not be scared. Scared meant weakness. So you were allowed to be angry, but you weren't allowed to be scared or sad. Whereas
mhm.
women, we were not allowed to be angry, but it was okay to be scared and sad. And so we have biases. And so there's a bias, particularly around men not being scared.
Hmm. But you find that it always does come back to that fear, that being scared element.
It comes back to something in me feels threatened, triggered,
Hmm.
reactive, and that therefore scared. And most people will say, I'm not scared. I'm not
Yeah,
scared,
exactly. I'm not.
right?
What are you talking about? I'm not scared.
I'm just triggered. I'm not scared. But if you go look underneath it. I was just having the conversation this morning with somebody who was staying at the home. He's like, I'm not scared. I want control. I'm like, but the one who wants control is at threat. He is afraid. And it's just hard for us to see. And for most of us, when we were kids, something happened and you got scared, and your parents just said, "You're fine, you're fine, you're fine. Don't be
Yeah.
scared." And then we have to hold our breath and shove it down and pretend like I'm not scared anymore. And then we grow up and run around all going and pretend we're not scared anymore. But we are. We're scared a
Well,
lot, and
I've
that's
I've
so fine.
Russian immigrant parents, so my dad was definitely one of those. Just be quiet, don't bother people with your problems. I'm like, all right,
Yep.
dad.
Yep.
So totally can relate to that. Okay, so that's the control one. Let's talk a little bit about there was the financial security and then there was the approval. So financial security, I feel like,
Not just financial security, it's all kinds of security. It's like, do I feel
okay.
safe? Do I feel safe? And safe can come in lots of different forms. But do I feel safe and secure? Psychologically, physically, financially? Am I okay? Even, like, do I have a roof over my head? Am I safe? So it's just that experience of if I believe safety is at threat, I'm going to get triggered and reactive.
So inside of an organization, how does the safety, like the clearest example of safety for me inside of a company is I'm going to get fired,
Right.
or somebody else is going to get
That's number
promoted.
one.
Okay,
That's
so
number
it's
one.
usually around firing, promotions. Somebody else is going to get something that I want, and so that
That's
could
why we
cause
have so many power dynamics, right? Because it's like you have power over me because you get to control whether I get to stay working here if you're my manager and have decision rights over that. And so now I'm scared. And so in my fear, I might agree to things I don't really want to agree to and give you the power. because I'm at risk of a job loss. And if I source my safety outside in my job, which a lot of us do, then I don't have power equally. I'm not equally powerful with my colleagues that have decision rights over my job.
Okay. So I
That
love the
happens all
technique.
the time.
So for the control one, I love the technique that you gave as far as looking at the situation in a black and white film. For this one around security, how would you? Because for this one, like the control to me sounds like something more that I'm responsible for. It's how I view things. The security almost sounds like it's more somebody else is threatening that instead of me being responsible for that.
They're all, you're separating them out. They're all the same thing.
Ah, okay.
Because the question is, are you willing to be the source of all the approval, all the control, and all the security you have ever wanted? Are you willing to be the source of it? If you are, you're free. But most of us put the source out there. If it's out there, then I'm okay. And that's where we get reactive and triggered. And most people have never experienced being the source of all the approval, control, and security they've ever wanted. They don't even know what that's like.
Okay, so they're all connected and kind of play a role there. But do you have any techniques that you would apply for the security one that we can use?
For security and specifically, well, just to come back to separate yourself out from the past and the future as best you can. Like imagine there's a wall from you in the past and you can't access the past. It's gone. And there's a wall between you and the future. It's not here yet. You are just right here. This moment, boom, right there. If you can just stay right there, is there any threat to security? If you're just right here, right now. Most people, if you stay right here, right now, there's no threat to security no matter what. Security will be threatened if you go past and future, as will the others as well. But particularly your body can really feel the somatic experience of no threat if I just stay right here, right now, man sitting in chair.
Yeah, the security one from the three, and I know they're connected, but do you find that inside of organizations, one is more prevalent than the other? No, huh?
They are all so equally here all the time, constantly, like over and over again, moment to moment, constantly.
Yeah.
Like every 4 seconds, constantly.
Oh, okay. I thought it was going to be like, once a week, once a day, maybe.
On average, the average human being is about 4 seconds before a threat will come in again to one of those three things over and over and over again. Do you like me? What do you think? Like, you just looked at me funny. Is that like, it's just, that's how we're wired. It's biology. We're wired to stay alive. And so if we believe that those three things might be at threat, those three things are connected to staying alive. And therefore I'm just on the lookout constantly.
Yeah, I guess that's a terrifying thing to think about. So even if you're not around other people, you're just sitting there by yourself, you're reading a book, it's still subconsciously every 4 seconds, you're just kind of, what's coming?
Maybe. It depends. The book if you're lost in a creative process, it might not be the same. But certainly oftentimes when we're in relationship to other people, those things kick in.
All right, let's touch on the third one, the approval, which to me is also a huge one, I would imagine, for a lot of people, right? I want to feel recognized. I want to feel appreciated. I want to feel like I did a good job. And if people don't tell me I'm not doing a good job, then, I hate them, the hell with this place. So maybe you can unpack that one a little bit. And why is that something that scares you? Because the control one, I feel like I understand. The security I get. Why does the approval lead to fear or feeling scared?
Because biologically, we lived in tribes. And if the tribe decided it didn't like me anymore, I could get kicked out of the tribe. And if I'm kicked out of the tribe, I'm dead. I'm not going to make it out there without the tribe. So the approval of others is key to my survival. And it's wired in. If nobody likes me, if nobody wants to play with me, how am I going to make money? How am I going to eat? It comes back in connection to survival again. I'll be alone. If I'm alone, I might get depressed. If I'm depressed, I might die. These things all come back to death.
Hmm. So I guess it's a deeper, so it's not so much the approval, but it's what the lack of approval would lead to, which is getting kicked out and maybe ostracized and being alone and not being a part of a team.
Well, it's still the same thing. It's the lack of control. What will it lead to? Because, so what
Yeah.
if on one level, it's like, well, if I don't make my numbers, it's a threat to my control, but that's okay. But then it believes it'll lead to something else.
Okay. All
They're
right. So
all
these,
they're all connected.
okay. So these three, is there a name that you have for all three? Like what would you call these three things?
These three things are the three focuses egos. The egos. Well, I don't have an. They're the three things that egos put attention on to manage constantly: security, control, approval.
Okay.
I don't have a more formal name than
No, no,
just,
no. But that's kind of what I was looking for, like a way to put them all together. So these
yeah,
are so everybody, obviously, everybody has an ego in some capacity. So whether in your personal life or inside of an organization, these are the three things that your ego is constantly trying to battle as far as potential threats:
yes,
uh, security, the approval, and the control.
yes,
Okay.
constantly. And
So
it's
we're all just walking
natural, it's
around.
normal. It's just an ego's job. We love egos. Egos are
Yeah.
here to help us survive. They're really wonderful. Thank God for egos. But the problem with an egoic structure is it's it's not very sophisticated. It can't tell if you're a lion or if you're just a guy who's not smiling at me. The ego might say to me in both cases, watch out, that's a danger. And
Yeah.
so I have to then be more present and decide, is that really a danger? But I'm going to get a warning no matter what. And then it's my job to discern, is that really a warning I ought to pay attention to? Or is that just an ego that's misfiring?
Hmm. So it sounds like the argument that you're trying to make is that we are all, we don't need to look to external forces for those things. We are responsible for those three things ourselves, and we can kind of change our perception around that.
That's the ideal, and that is easier said than done. It is a
Yeah.
big deal. It is a big deal to learn how to be the source of all the approval you have ever wanted. That's, for many people, that's a lifetime's journey of learning to unconditionally love everything about yourself.
Yeah. Huh. Do you have any, because I'm sure people listening and hearing that are going to say, wait, how do I start? And I know you're saying it's a lifetime journey. And then after this, I want to talk about the drama triangle and victimhood. But for people who are hearing that, and obviously you have resources and a book and a website people can check out. But if people wanted to start on that journey, what would be some first practical steps that people can take to try to condition themselves to be the source of those three things?
Okay. Well, I I think one place you might start is start with approval. Um, and start with starting to take a look at, you are a multi-dimensional being who has a lot of parts. And can you start to let it be okay that all these parts have value, and they all can have consequences, but they all have value and they're all worthy and they're all welcome at the table. And so your job is to take a look at, what do I not welcome at the table inside of myself? And how you're going to know is, who do you judge out there? Who do you go, ugh, I'm not like that? Whoever that is, they represent a mirror that they're holding up to help you look back and see the thing about you that you won't own. I'm not rude. Well, yeah, you are rude. Now, you might not be rude the way that person's rude, but you might be rude inside of your own head toward yourself. Criticizing yourself is equally rude.
Yeah.
So you have to start to take a look at, I'm just like you in my own way. And can I let that be okay? Can I not make that bad or wrong? Can I accept that that's part of me? There's value in that and there's challenge in that. But that's a practice. And part of how you can do that is make that part that you don't like about yourself, turn it into a funny character and play it out in a more exaggerated way, so that you start to find it endearing.
Hmm.
So that's a
What would
radical
be an
concept.
example of?
Yeah. So let's play here. Think of somebody out there in the world that you're like, ugh, you have some aversion to. And what if you gave me one word about them that you would say, like them, you like the least about them? What's that word that would describe them? They're what?
Somebody that I don't like.
That you're like, I'm not like that. Who are you like? I'm not like that guy. I'm not like her. I'm not like them. Who
Yeah,
is
yeah, yeah. Okay. I would say the word that I would use to describe them is boring.
boring? Good. Okay, great. So now what I would
I don't
do
like where
is
this is going.
good. So then what I want you to do is you're going to say, um, I I'm not willing to welcome the one in me who's boring.
HR leaders just like you are moving beyond traditional HR to focus on the future of work and employee experience. And that's why I put together a specific community just for that purpose. It's called Future of Work Leaders. It's bringing together 100 of the world's top chief human resource officers who are moving beyond traditional HR to focus on the future of work and employee experience. We have CHROs from companies like Dow, Lego, Neiman Marcus, Northrop Grumman, Johnson & Johnson, and dozens of others. So if you are a CHRO and you're interested in connecting with peers who are also focused on the future of work and employee experience, if you don't want to spend a ton of money, if you don't want to be subjected to upselling and cross-selling and speeches and just all the fluff that some of these other communities out there are offering, then check out futureofworkleaders.com. I promise you, you will be glad that you did. I'm definitely not willing to welcome the one in me who's boring.
Right? So now I go, all right, I want you to go, hey, babe, I'm realizing after talking to Diana today that I don't welcome boring. And so I'm going to play out being really boring tonight at dinner. And I'm just going to see how boring could I be in a very funny, kind of exaggerated caricature way. And I'm just going to see what I can learn by playing boring. I'm going to play it out. And so what I want you to do is just sit there at the table and maybe you don't say a word the whole night. Or you like say the most boring shit. You just go
My
like,
wife's gonna love that.
just be as boring as you can. And then what you're going to discover is you're going to go, you know what? There was actually something about boring that I actually found a little valuable, that I don't let happen in me. And that the boring one holds a quality that's actually worth embracing a little bit more. And actually, boring could help me out maybe in particular challenges I have in my life. So if I learn to play boring and welcome that, then I get to learn what that is in me, incorporate that in. And then when I experience it out there, I don't have to judge it in a way that creates aversion. I get to stay connected to everybody. Now, I may not want to be around it. I might not prefer it, but I don't have to have a closed system to it. And that feels really good, not to close yourself off from other people.
Yeah. Huh. I like that
And
exercise.
then I get to welcome, oh yeah, I got boring too. And, like it's boring to recycle drama that I have with certain people in my life. That's boring. Like, how can I
Yeah.
look at what is boring that I'm already doing that's boring? And have I loved the part of me that's already boring? And then not make that a problem. And now I go, yep, that's me. I'm boring too. Lovable. Mwah, mwah, mwah. And then I go on to like, what else you got? So you're just going to keep looking at where are all your judgments, keep owning it until you come to a place of, yeah, there's nothing in here that's not valuable. There's
Yeah.
nothing in here that's not lovable. I adore it all. Some of it's kind of a pain sometimes, and some of it's, but they all have that. All of these parts have something essency about them, something that I can utilize that actually really helps. Because I would argue the value of boring for most people is boring helps people access silence and stillness, which most people are terrified of. And silence and stillness occupies a certain space that is profoundly freeing. And boring knows how to get there.
Yeah, I would imagine that exercise is probably more fun to do in your personal life than at your company, right? Like if I'm on a team and I just show up and act like that, people are gonna be like, "What the hell is wrong with this
Not
guy?"
if everybody's agreeing. I've seen teams do it where it's really fun, where the whole
Oh,
group
you?
does it. It's a little, you have to have a certain level of intimacy on a team, and not all teams
Yeah,
have
yeah,
that.
yeah,
And so, in that case, you're correct that it's a little friendlier to do at home. But I have seen it work really well, or at least work with anybody, a couple of colleagues that's like, hey, let's play. What's something that shows up in, that we're trying to avoid, and how might that help us?
yeah. Okay. I want to shift gears a little bit and talk about this idea of the drama triangle and
Yeah.
victimhood. So, can you explain what the drama triangle is, how this relates to victimhood, um, and then I don't want to ask the follow up question because it might give away the drama triangle stuff. So, why don't we start with just understanding what that is and how it relates to victimhood?
Okay. So, Stephen Cartman is a psychologist who said most of us learned how to be in relationship by being in victimhood. And there are three unique flavors of victimhood. The first one is the pure victim. And you guys, this is hard, and I'm trying, and I don't have any power here, and I feel deflated, and any kind of a whine, and it's all in this realm of victim. And then another form of victimhood that comes in is like, yeah, I'm at the effect of it too, but how I'm going to deal with it is I'm going to blame. And it's your fault or their fault or my fault. But that's how I'll deal with victimhood, is by blaming.
Hmm.
And I call that role the villain. He called it the persecutor. And then the final role in the drama triangle is, the way I deal with victimhood is I'm just going to try to temporarily fix it. And that's how I'll feel better. And so I'm going to come in and hero the situation by seeing a victim that needs help, including myself. I can hero myself or hero them. And I will give myself some temporary relief, or give you some temporary relief. But then it will require, a whole pattern has to recycle, because we're doing it from reactivity.
Hmm.
So
Okay,
it's
so
hero, villain, victim, which I like those terms, because it's like every good drama, every good movie has a hero, villain, and victim. And it's very entertaining. And it's one of the reasons why we stay below in reactivity and drama, is it is very enlivening. And if you're not creating a lot of enlivening in your own self, trauma is a good hit of adrenaline, norepinephrine, and cortisol that helps people feel
hmm,
alive.
interesting. Okay, so maybe we can unpack those this a little bit. So let's start off with the hero. So this is somebody who, like you said, solving problems. I have a solution. I'm gonna fix it.
Yep.
How does that translate into victimhood? So let's say something happens. I'm on a team. I don't know. Something's going wrong. I missed a deadline. We didn't create our project, or we didn't deliver our product or service at the right time, and it's a whole issue. Is the hero somebody who kind of swoops in and says, "I know how to fix this. I know what we can do next time. I know how we can improve it." Because some people might view that as being a proactive problem solver, and they might say, "Well, that's a great thing that you have ideas on how to improve." So why is that
Yeah.
a victim approach
Well, it's a
or drama?
victimhood approach if I'm at the effective. So there's a common pattern amongst some kinds of leaders in which I'm kind of a hands-off leader, because I don't like the day-to-day details. I find them boring. I don't like to be bored. And so I keep hands off, but then I keep so hands off that things start to run amok. And then I swoop in for a couple of days and micromanage everything, freak everybody out, and get it all back in order. And then I fly away again, because I don't want to continue to manage it, and then have to recycle that pattern over and over again. So
Hmm.
how it's being done from victimhood is the relief it creates will be temporary. So I don't permanently solve the issue. So for example, my experience is most everybody has some form of burnout they create for themselves. And then
Okay.
they
Yeah.
go home and they all hero themselves. And I always ask everybody, what's your favorite way to hero yourself when you're burnt out? Is it alcohol? Is it Netflix? Is it gaming? Is it running? Is it whatever you're going to do to give yourself some temporary relief? And it works. But you actually don't go, hey, stop. How am I burning myself out day after day? What's that about? How do I change my lifestyle and change my patterns so that I can come home empty but not burnt. There's different, that they feel different. And if I can
Yeah.
learn to do that, right? But I don't go address the core issues. I just relieve it over and over again. And that's how I keep the patterns going.
So it's sort of the root cause of the issue never gets addressed.
Exactly.
Okay.
And a hero needs a victim. That's the difference, because a
Hmm.
hero needs somebody who is not as equally powerful so that they can come in and feel power themselves because you need me. And there's a lot of us that get addicted to that. I know I was when I first got introduced to the drama triangle. I could not find a single relationship that I was not in hero mode with, not one. It was a total racket I was doing.
Interesting. Okay. So it seems like the key differentiator there is the relief is temporary. So if it's a permanent solution that addresses long-term cause, then that is a benefit. But if it's something that keeps repeating over and over again with kind of a band-aid solution, that's when it starts to become a problem.
Yes, and it's about, am I solving it because I'm in threat, or am I solving it because I'm in trust? Those are two very different states, and one will recycle and the other one won't.
Okay. But that's only something you can identify, right? Whether it's threat or trust. Okay.
Yes, but also other people can get a sense of it because you can feel it. Often, if you're
Yeah.
present, you can feel the people. So you might say, "Hey, colleague, just want to ask you to check. Right now, do you
Mm.
feel at all like there's any reactivity here, or do you feel fully in a state of trust? And
Okay.
can you just check?" And then they might say, "Yeah, I feel like I'm in trust." And then you can say, if we have an agreement about this, I'm very clear about that. If we had an agreement, I might say, "Hey, can I give you some feedback about how I experience you in some threat?" And
Okay.
then if we have that agreement, if we're all agreeing to play the game of paying attention to these things, which is what conscious leadership is all about, this would not be friendly to do with somebody for whom we don't have that agreement.
Okay. All right. The next one, the victim, that to me seems like that I think that most people can relate to. It's pretty like we're used to that, right? Somebody who just says, "I can't. Oh no, everything is hard." I don't like that's the one that I can't stand personally. Like that drives me nuts. Even with my kids, I'm like, "I can't. My leg hurts. I'm itchy." I'm like, "What? You have an itch? Like that's what you're complaining about? Get out of here." That's the one growing up where my dad would be like, "Shut up. Like walk it off.
Uh,
Like
right,
you're fine."
right. You were taught to have an intolerance of it, and then you pass the intolerance on to the next generation, which is really common because most of us are just passing on the way it was done for
Yeah,
us.
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so this one, is there anything that we need to unpack about this one, about the victim? I
Well,
think it's
the victim has to wake up that it's a creator, and that these things aren't happening to you, they're happening by you. And the creator
uh,
wakes up and says, "Oh, my kid not doing their homework isn't happening to me, it's happening by me." Or my colleague who doesn't keep their time agreements and keeps showing up late to meetings isn't happening to me, it's happening by me. So I had a guy who was a number two behind the CEO, and he said, um, "I'm not getting the feedback from the CEO that I want." And I said, "If this isn't happening to you and it's happening by you, and you're actually the creator of not getting feedback, tell me how you do that. Teach me a class. I want to learn how to not have feedback coming from my CEO." And he was able to do it. And then like the light bulbs went on, and he was like, "Oh my goodness. Oh my, like, of course I'm not getting feedback. I'm organizing myself not to get feedback. I had no idea. I didn't know. I thought I was a victim, and now I'm recognizing I'm the creator." And that's the practice over and over again, is take radical responsibility.
I like that idea that you say, "Teach me a class." All
Yeah.
right, it's because it's interesting. It's counterintuitive. If you were to teach somebody a class on how to have that negative outcome, how would you teach it?
Yeah. And I
Uh,
like to play with it. Like, I live in the Bay Area, so I go, Stanford called. They want you to come teach a class on how to make sure your kids don't clean up after themselves in the toys and litter.
I feel
And
like I
like
could teach a class on that.
we're all new parents, and we're like, we can't wait till our 5 and 8 year olds don't clean up after themselves. We want to make sure we set that up just like you. What would we have you do? And I like to have the client actually exaggerate and act like a professor and be like, "Welcome students to my class. This is dirty living room 301. I'm an expert in this area. If you too want to have this experience, here's what you need to do. And then, like, make sure you get your notepad out. I got some good advice. And then, we have fun with it. We make it a game. And I do this with teams where I say, okay, you guys haven't made your numbers for the last 2 quarters. You guys are going to teach a course at Stanford to a new startup that wants to not make their numbers in 5 years the way you guys in your 5th year aren't making your numbers. You're going to tell them exactly what to do. And they all go, I have them go away and go into different corners and write it up on pieces of paper. And then they come back and they teach it to each other. And and I have them really playfully do it. And it's fun, it's funny, and it's illuminating because they're all like, oh my God, it's totally true. And then the good news, I go, you don't need me. You don't need some other advisors. You're just going to go do the opposite of everything you wrote down on this list, and the problem will be permanently solved.
Yeah. Huh. I love that. That's a fun visual. I'm going to play around with
I've
that
even
one.
done it. I mean, I've even done it in radical situations. Like somebody comes to me and says, I've been cheated on. My husband
Oh,
has
wow.
been having an affair. And I'll say, teach me the course. I want my husband to have an affair like you did. Now that may sound radical, but I ask her, just go look and see, how did you co-create that? Now, you don't have all the power here. He has his part to play. But she goes, well, if I look, I've been extremely critical. I prioritize the children. I'm not interested in, I've not prioritized intimacy. And yeah, I don't give him much attention. So I can see how I had a part to play. Now, that doesn't give it an excuse. It's not to blame, but it is to start to recognize, oh, I can start to understand how I've co-created somebody going to find attention someplace else.
Yeah, that's interesting. Okay, so I know we only have a few minutes left. So the victim one, I love that. So that's realizing that you are in some way, either in a small part or a large part, the creator of those challenges. And then the
Everything
last one,
going on in your life, everything. Go take a look at how are you the
yeah,
co-creator, including go take a look at it. People want to go, can you believe the government? Can you believe this? Can you believe tech? Can you believe, the oligarchs? It's like, how are you in the co-creative process of the thing happening? It's not happening to you. Even
yeah,
those things that you think you don't have a lot of influence over, look again. Everybody has a part to play.
yeah,
Everybody. This is what radical. And people get upset. Sometimes they're like, wait a minute, this radical stuff is a little edgy and I'm pushing on it. Yeah, right, it is. And that's the wake up call.
yeah. And then the last one, which I think a lot of people can also relate to, is blame. I've certainly fallen into that, that before, where there's a challenge.
That's what we're just talking about, right? I want to
Yeah,
blame you and I want to blame them and I want to blame everybody else for the way things are instead of I'm I'm co-creating everything.
hmm. Yeah. It's a hard thing for a lot of people to embrace, is that you're co-creating it, right?
I
Taking that kind of
understand. And so I would
accountability and
just go, the
responsibility.
reason why it's hard is because it's going to be uncomfortable, and egos focus is on comfort and ease. That's what egos want. I want comfort and ease in my body, in my emotional states, in my life. I want comfort and ease. And having to take radical responsibility is uncomfortable. It's painful to look at. It hurts.
Yeah,
And
not
people
easy.
don't want to look at their shadows that are co-creating these patterns. So
Hmm.
of course, egos don't want to look.
Why is victimhood bad? Because there are a lot of people out there who we know who view the world as they're victims and everyone's coming to get them and somebody's taking from them. And then there are also people who I'm sure we all have in our lives who, I can't say never have that mentality, but have it a lot less. So, what is it that separates people who view themselves as victims perpetually versus others who view themselves not as victims, but they view the world more as those are challenges and things that I need to overcome? Like, what's the mental? Is it a different, just a mindset, a way that they view the world, how they were raised? How is it that people view the world and their situations and circumstances so differently?
first of all, I don't want to say that victimhood is bad. Victimhood is human.
Human.
It's
Okay.
human. It's just human. And I think the research would suggest there are several things that influence how open and curious we are. One of those is that genetically, some of us just have a propensity to be more open and curious than others. We know
Okay.
this. We know that there are genetic differences. That doesn't mean if I do have more of a challenge with my genetics to be open and curious, it doesn't mean I can't learn to be more open and curious. I can, but it will be more difficult for some of us than others. Two, some of us were grown up in environments that were incredibly threatening, so therefore we have nervous systems that are much more wired to be in reactivity. So we have to be sensitive to that.
Okay.
And three, we might be just in current situations that feel far more challenging to stay present in than others. And so, based on what we're dealing with in the moment, we have to be honest. Some of us are dealing with more difficult things than others, and that might create more reactivity. So, all of those things can affect us going into those below the line states. And our job for all of us is to not make that bad or wrong about ourselves or each other, ideally, and recognize that we will thrive more if we're not in victimhood. More of us will be in more well-being if we can spend more time there. And that ultimately I don't get to control anybody else's victimhood. The best thing I do is role model being in a state of trust myself and trust how much impact I have when I walk around in the world holding that state.
Okay. And maybe one last question for you to wrap up, which I think is just, it builds on some of this, but it's sort of a separate question that I wanted to ask you. Is there a leadership behavior or trait or characteristic that you see in organizations that is most rewarded today, but that is actually the most dangerous for leaders to have? So something that a lot of us inside of organizations say, yeah, that's great, but really it's actually not great. It actually is a dangerous quality and characteristic to have.
What is that characteristic you're
No,
asking?
like, is there one that comes to mind for you? Like
Well,
when I was
greed.
writing that question for you, the one that I thought of immediately was being right. Because to me, it seems like inside of organizations, we reward being right, right? It's sort of like, if you're right all the time, you get promoted, you get this, you get that. But it's also a little bit of a dangerous characteristic and quality to have to pursue, kind of like what we were talking about, always trying to be right. So
I
is there
would say the
something else
most
like that
dangerous
that comes?
quality. I would say the most dangerous quality I see is greed.
Greed. Okay.
Greed. I think greed is what's taking us collectively down. Is greed.
So unpack that a little bit. You mean like financially, like I want more money, I want to get paid more, I want to.
That's one form of greed. I want more goodies. I want to, whatever it is, I want to focus on me and getting me and forgetting that I want we to thrive. And I might have to get a little uncomfortable to support we thriving, but I want comfort again. And greed is one way I try to source comfort.
Mm,
And so that addiction to comfort and ease that is the source of greed and so many other challenges. It's partly why I won't fight for what I want to fight for. I won't speak for what I want to speak for. I don't, is
yeah.
that addiction to comfort and ease. And
Okay.
so
So
we
greed,
can,
it can be around anything, right? Greed for money, greed for status, for power, for the recognition, for responsibility. It's just wanting more for you. And I guess on the surface, maybe that's not necessarily bad, but you're saying it's bad when it's forgetting that there's other people around you on your team.
yeah. And there's a lot of us who are thinking about all of us, but there are a lot of us who aren't. And,
Okay.
and when we get caught up in a me, what about me without what about we too, then
Yeah.
we start to create a lot of suffering for ourselves.
Okay.
But I
All right.
think it is ultimately, when I look more and more, that addiction to comfort and ease really is at the core of so much suffering.
Addiction to comfort and ease. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I agree. I mean, we need to challenge ourselves and try to get ourselves more out of our comfort zone for sure.
Right. I remember my marriage changed when my husband decided to stop being stop it being a problem that he was uncomfortable when I was angry. And when he started to go, oh, wow, you're angry. Yeah, I'm a little uncomfortable over here, but I'm going to welcome my discomfort and welcome your anger. Like the whole thing flipped.
Interesting.
So same thing at work. I'm going to welcome me giving you feedback and you might be uncomfortable. And I'm going to welcome you being uncomfortable and being uncomfortable myself, knowing you're uncomfortable. If I can't be in that discomfort, I can't give you honest feedback because I'm trying to control everything. And then we can't be our best selves. And then we don't thrive. Like there's so much addiction to that comfort.
Yeah. Yeah. Diana, it's been a very, very interesting and fascinating conversation. I learned a lot. I hope people who are listening and watching learned a lot as well. Where can people go to learn more about you? Anything that you want to mention for people to check out?
Yeah, I co-founded the organization, the Conscious Leadership Group. I'm no longer over there, but it's still a place I am deeply devoted to. And there's so many fabulous resources. If you liked the content we talked about today, all of this content is in videos and meditations and handouts on their resource page, all for free. I highly recommend going there. That's conscious.is. If you want to keep an eye on me, you can come over to Diana at dianachapman.com. I'm just in this process of redesigning my next chapter in life. And so you can join the newsletter list there to learn more about my upcoming things as they evolve.
Very cool. Diana, thank you so much for taking time out of your day. I really appreciate it.
You're so welcome. It was fun to play with you, Jacob.
Thanks for tuning in to today's episode of Future Ready Leadership. If you want to get access to more content on how you can become future ready, make sure to subscribe to the newsletter. It's thefutureorganization.com/newsletter. And if you enjoyed this episode, please send it to somebody who you would like to see become a better leader. Thanks for listening or watching, and I will see you next time.